in creating this reform. And I wonder, from the perspective where you stand right now, considering everything that's happened, what you consider to be the biggest challenge? What's the biggest point you have to address when it comes to AU reform?
The biggest challenge is always going to be, and for all of us, to shift from doing business as usual and change how we think through different things to do with the policy and, above all, implementing what we are really saying we want to do. And change a little bit of thinking in terms of what we've been used to in the past, and because the present and the future require that we make a lot of adjustments. And therefore, well, I had the pleasure of being selected by the African Union leaders when they were meeting here in Kigali for the summit that was there last July. And later on, when I was producing the report of the proposals I was forwarding to the leaders who asked me to carry out that task, I mentioned a couple of things beyond the specific proposals. And I was telling them, well, for me, it was a pleasure, but I think I was asked to do the simpler part, because it was just getting together a group of men and women who have a lot in their background, expertise, and they know Africa, they know the problems, they know the opportunities, and we put together these ideas.
It is a diverse team as well, isn't it?
It's a diverse team. But I was saying this is a simpler part because this is really, you know, the task they gave us was just bring together these ideas. But the bigger task is, and I was telling the leaders, is theirs. Because they have, if they have agreed, and they did agree to the proposals, the bigger task was implementation, to do the very things. And then, in fact, later on, surprisingly, they also asked me to follow up on the implementation, which I again said, well, I'm happy to do that. Still, it is the simpler part. Following up is just following up. I'm not going to do for you what you should be doing. You still have to do the harder task, and that is do what you have agreed needs to be done. So for me, I just be studying, analyzing what has been going on across the continent or within the African, at the AU and other areas, and just tell them, I said, this is where we are. X has been done, the other hasn't been done, and so on and so forth. So I was telling them, still, this is the simpler part for me, and I'm happy to go.
You said something very key in your opening remarks, Mr. President. You said there's a need for mindset to change. Do you sense there is the will, the desire to actually change those entrenched ideas and move forward?
I think so. I think so. Even what has been discussed during this meeting, if you look at what is happening across the continent, a number of things are happening, and you see that mood of wanting change across Africa, in governments, private sector, men and women of this continent. There is discussion going on about change, but you know, I think we are hard pressed to move faster than we actually are moving. This is why I think the problem is. At what rate are we moving forward? And at what rate, why the question is very important. First is the need to actually see fast progress, given where we are and where we want to be. We are so left behind if you look at the indicators, the data across the globe. Africa is always, for example, I also mentioned in my speech how 15% of intra-Africa trade is very low compared to other areas. So why can't we move faster? And especially now, the second part I was going to talk about, rather than the need, it's also that there are means and, several opportunities we should be tapping into to be able to move at a very fast rate. So, and that's why, again, I was talking about the political will. Just the political will is not enough. We need to have more political will than we actually see, but it is there. I think, again, I don't want to sound like there isn't much happening. I think there is much happening, but we need to do much more.
To quote you, and it's been said widely after you took on this role, you said, "We have everything needed to succeed. To fail Africa again would be unforgivable." And one of the key things is, I think you point out that yourself, Rwanda, the key people involved, can't do it alone. You need that cooperation. So what are your first steps in trying to make sure everyone is on board?
Two levels. One is within our country, ourselves. How do we go about things? How do we involve everybody? How do we make sure that everybody is not only contributing but benefiting as well? That speaks to the governance. Politically, economically, how do you drive things to the extent that everybody feels they are part of what is happening, they are part of the process, they contribute, they benefit, and so on. Then you go beyond Rwanda, we are talking about the region. There has been integration process going on in our region, say East Africa, and Rwanda contributes to that together with other partner countries, and we are seeing good progress. But so we have to therefore prioritize, identify which areas that are key, that will actually drive things faster. Integration must be allowing movement of people. It must be developing our infrastructure that connects to the region. It must be a number of things that takes into account the 150 million people in this East African region. So this is where we are.
Well, let's do this, Mr. President. Let's open it up to our distinguished guests here and offer them the microphone. Please, if you have a question for President Kagame, put your hand up clearly. We'll get to the hands in the order went up. The lady there has a hand up. Keep it up clearly when you pass the microphone. Thank you, ma'am. Tell us who you are and your affiliation, please.
Thank you. Good morning, Your Excellency and Your Excellency. I'm Dr. Amy Jadasimi. I'm Nigerian. I run an industrial free zone in Lagos. There are a lot of Nigerians here, including His Excellency, our former president. I have a selfish question, which is, Your Excellency, what advice do you have for us as Nigerians, as civilian Nigerians?
Wow. Well, first of all, I think I have seen you on CNN actually. So when I see your face, I have seen you explaining a certain project, construction site somewhere on television. Yes, I can tell looking at your face. Well, I need advice from Nigeria. But if I may just answer the question you have asked. Nigeria has everything. The people, the resources, the industriousness of those people, and so on and so forth. So Nigerians just need to make that work, and work for them and work for the whole continent.
So keep in mind, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, we have probably about 20 minutes or so make sure your hands do go up. They all go up at the end and everyone wonders why I can't get to all of them. The gentleman there, and then we have one at the back. So, thank you. I'll get you over that side.
Your Excellency, my name is King Solomon Adima. I am also Nigerian. I have established here in Rwanda, and my company is the African Project Finance Corporation. Sometimes I imagine if 1 billion people are allowed to move freely, what the impact would be. And I know that last year the African Union passport was launched, and that is a step in the right direction. And the informal trade can be enhanced by that free movement. So my question is, how soon are we expecting every African to drop his national passport and have that African Union passport? That's my question.
Well, to answer it quickly, first of all, the lady was right. I think there are many Nigerians here. The second is, I'm also right. I need Nigerians' advice, and I got it because you are here established and doing something. So I got advice from one Nigerian there. The third is, you know, you are right. These are some of the things everybody knows would work best for us. And exactly that speaks to the point we were discussing earlier. 1 billion people, more actually, said. So why can't we, you know, have and build on this size, volume of things across our continent? And simple things like those you have mentioned, we need, one, to allow freedom of movement, and I'm glad you are here established from Nigeria, and you already know we allow all Africans to travel to Rwanda without difficulties to do with visas. It was a conscious decision, and we want to see that if all other African countries could allow our brothers and sisters across the continent to travel freely, that would be making a lot of sense in that regard. So that follows, or is to be followed by the issuance of passports, an African passport. Otherwise, you may anyway get a passport, but you may just end up keeping it in your pocket because you can't use it. So a number of things have to happen at the same time. Get the passport, but also at the same time, we make it easier for Africans to travel with this passport across borders. Why do we make these restrictions for people to move from one place to another? It's not necessary. What we lose is much more than what we gain by allowing these barriers to be in place. So I think the faster we work together, we collaborate as Africans, countries, and at the AU, our leaders making these right decisions to allow that to happen, I think we can see Africa continuing to rise and not just being a reference.
There was a hand towards the back that went up, that was next.
We run a project that empowers micro-entrepreneurs, especially women and people with disabilities in areas with no infrastructure. I guess my question to you, Mr. President, is that as we've been running all our projects, we've been facing some challenges with urban planners that do not account for micro-entrepreneurs working in urban areas. What advice would you give us when approaching the urban planners, the city councils, the districts? Because most of our micro-entrepreneurs are having difficulty getting places to work in their jurisdiction.
Perhaps also we could take this in the broader context of our discussion on the AU reform, and I could ask, expanding on that, whether or not it's the attention to the smaller businesses and the smaller enterprises that might actually help build a bit more unity across borders too. That's
very true. It's very true. First, you have to encourage and support smaller businesses to do, to thrive, to grow. But at the same time, then you have to allow these businesses to move free within and across borders. And I think that's the best way to do it. And the point he was pointing to also, I think there are many facilities established, say, here in the country, but you find there's always, improvement to be made in terms of communicating so that the people who should be actually using those facilities even know that these facilities are there. So there is always going to be that improvement in communication, in reaching out to people, and actually knowing there are other problems you don't know about what they are doing for them to be able to grow their businesses. So the advice I would give the young man who raised the question is, one, the facilities around, two, I'm sure our leaders who are here, Rwandan leaders at different levels, will be listening, and we need to go back and check and see how what we have put in place or the desire to do things is actually having the effect we want and reaching people who need this kind of support and they know what we can do.
Thank you.
My name is Collins Moy. I'm a business journalist with the New Times Daily. Mr. President, severally you have mentioned that to go beyond the 15% levels of intra-Africa trade, it takes more than just injecting money. It takes more than just finances. It's about addressing political will. So, according to you, what do you consider the biggest challenges, or where do we fall back, or where does the continent fall back, or what are the largest gaps that, and maybe how will the ongoing African Union reforms address those challenges? Thank you.
Well, really it comes back to one simple point. Many meetings we have of this kind and others, much bigger meetings elsewhere. I think it is not, we are not short of information, data, knowledge of what we need to do and even how to do it. Therefore, and leaders are not just presidents or prime ministers and ministers. Leaders really means all of us doing different things in our own right are leaders. We need to just work together and build on this huge reservoir of knowledge and information we have of what we can build on, of the facilities out there that we can tap into to be able to do things, and go ahead and do it. It comes down to implementation. You can have very good policies, you can have all kinds of messages going, but somebody has got to do something.
As you said, Africa has everything it needs. One of the key things I know you're concerned with in the reforms is to reduce donor dependency and create a greater self-funded system. How are you going to be able to get away from what is a very large amount that comes in from the donors, over 50%?
Well, it's just to do these things we are very slow, but in our case, we've actually seen the external funding from the official aid coming down from 80s to 20s. So it's because of trying to do, and we've been trying to develop businesses, we've been trying to develop capacities of what we can produce ourselves. And again, the discussion should not be misunderstood. Sometimes when we are out there talking about what we need to do ourselves, meaning the countries of Africa, it's across Africa, really, it's not just Rwanda, so that we reduce this dependency. Or, sometimes the response is that, these countries, you still need us, you need money, it's like tone down your voice, calling upon people to work hard to utilize the very resources we have around we are talking about, and these opportunities we have, and raise, our level to that where we don't need to be, given aid all the time. So it is a misunderstanding. We are not saying it is not helpful, not at all. It is helpful, it has been helpful, and it helps even now in places where government, or even the government together with the private sector, there are things we haven't been able to achieve, and we still have to keep growing. So those gaps are filled that way. But we need to also continue. We need to continue to reduce these gaps so that there is more we can do, because we can. Because there are people, there are resources, natural resources, there are management issues, there are activities, socio-economic activities that people can do for ourselves, and we are experiencing it here. There is a lot more to do, but there is a lot that we have done, and I think if we can keep learning lessons from each other, I think we can go a long way.
And I think even Dr. Adama explained in his... Next question there, please.
Good morning, Mr. President. My name is Adama Wade. I'm a managing editor of Financial Afrik. I have just one question, Mr. President. To all the former African presidents, who is your model? And what is the final definition of leader? What is the best leader today for Africa?
I think African leaders are my colleagues and my friends. About the model, I think that's a different issue. But we are brothers, we are friends, we work together.
I'm going to try and get the questions. I know we don't have...
Thank you. My name is Mary Kamari. I work for TDB, formerly known as PTA Bank. My question is to you, Mr. President. This week we had very many presenters that touched on something that is very important and dear to everyone here, the youth, the future. We had Tony Romero this week presenting about the youth, the support he has given to the youth, who have actually created jobs, but in terms of sustaining those jobs is very difficult. I know you're in strong support of women and youth. What advice can you give to everyone here in their own where they come from and their own country? Thank you.
Yes. Well, everything is going to be difficult. I'm sure getting that kind of support, initial support, in itself, that was difficult. Now, you are talking about sustainability, which is going to be difficult as well. There's no question. But the sustainability of it depends on you and depends on the collaboration between you and others, and whether there are these opportunities around us that we can keep calling upon to help in what we are doing. So there is one thing that is central that must be present. It's you, it's me. It's for us to keep at it, trying to do our best. If you reach a point and sit back and hope things can move well, that will not happen. So you are the constant in this, and the sustainability is you, and then how the interaction takes place between you and others, and the continued creation of these opportunities by those responsible leaders, institutions, and so on. But the central part is one's own contribution.
The lady at the front there, thank you. Thank you. I know we won't get to all the hands, so I'll ask your forgiveness in advance, but I'm not actually sure how much time we have. I guess that will depend on the President.
Mr. President, good afternoon. My name is Montla Hlahla, and I'm a board member for Afreximbank. Thank you very much for hosting us. What would you consider the key attributes that have led you to being so practical a leader? And what is at the foremost of your mind when you think about the future of political leadership in Rwanda? Thank you very much.
Right. Well, it's a combination of things. One, I think stubbornness is one of them. You've got at some point to keep challenging not only yourself, but mainly what you have to deal with, and question and sometimes rebel against what has been established as just the norm, but which doesn't give you anything. So that's one of them. The other is I probably have been raised in problems and have learned a lot of lessons that come with that. And yeah, but at the top of it, if you develop a sense of responsibility, not only for yourself, but knowing that there is no individual who is just going to live on their own and without connection with the other, and therefore think hard about that. I think that is one of the attributes, or some of the attributes that maybe it's not here to say that as if it is different from what other people are expected to do or they can benefit from. But I think those are some of the things. Then the other part, I just wanted to speak. The other part you said was future. Oh, with the leaders, the future was one thing. You see, I was going to use a proverb, but to me, not to be misunderstood. You see, as we invest in our country, we invest in education, in health, and almost everything that is about developing people, empower people. When you have invested in youth, in women, and given them all these capacities, we have invested in communications infrastructure, and so on. So it's to make sure that the people of Rwanda, as we move forward in this development, they have these capacities to be able to figure out what they need to do and go ahead and do it. And that is what produces leaders. So at one point in the future, we will be having different leaders. And these leaders will have grown through all this. And it's not going to be me to decide to who does what at every time, especially at that time, maybe after me. But I think as long as there are these people that these leaders can come from, that have been developed by the country itself, and I think that is, for me, the way I look at it. Everyone is capable of being a leader, as long as some of these investments have been made generally for the population. And the rest is organization, and then politics, the way it is also organized from one place to another. The combination of all that will produce a leader required at any time, and these leaders are going to be different. They will do things differently, but everyone wants to succeed. It doesn't matter how different you are or how differently you do things. The main aim is always to succeed. So if we can have people who will produce somebody who will lead them to success, I think that's where we come from.
I'm guessing we have about 10 minutes, so I'll do the hands in the order that they came up. Let's get three pointed out. There's a lady at the front there who's been waiting, a gentleman in the middle there, and then the one behind as well. So let's get those three first and see how we have the time.
Your Excellency, I always come out smarter every time I get to listen to you and President Obasanjo. My name is Cecilia Akintomide, and I will say I am African. Your Excellency, you've talked about the importance of a mindset change. At the same time, Africa is known as the youthful continent, the continent with the youth dividend. How are you ensuring that this mindset change, you are making sure that the youth of Rwanda, and then from a larger perspective, the youth on the continent of Africa are being prepared for it, are being educated to accept the mindset change? We see a lot of programs outside of Africa, but these programs are not necessarily those that would create an African mindset for the future of the continent. So that's my first question.
Sorry, we're going to have to leave it at one, just because we're so short. Please forgive me.
Yes, but you are raising a very important question. We have young people, young leaders growing into leaders at a higher level and so on. The upbringing matters, the things they see, the things that happen to them, and so on and so forth. And the way they are educated by that, about being the Africans we should be. They learn many things, failures, successes, good, bad, and so on. But they've got to figure out how to come out with a better Africa than today than yesterday. So let me give you a quick example with the mindset change. Simple things matter a lot. You know, people come here and ask us, you know, how do you keep this city and your country clean and so on and so forth. And I tell them a simple story how it came about. We are talking among ourselves and we decide, we say, you know what, to keep your homestead clean, or to keep our city clean, or to keep our, villages clean, isn't something we are going to need donors' money for. It's something we can do ourselves. You don't need to go asking people to give you money to clean your compound. It doesn't make sense. So, and from that, people realize, yes, this is something we need, it is good, it's something we can do, so why were we not doing it before? So there is sticking to some of these simple things that matter, that also educate, and if people grow through all this. So these young people who are emerging into leaders of the future and even of the present, this upbringing matters a lot. So all we do is invest in them and then have this environment. But the point you made very quickly, I shouldn't miss it. We had another situation. I remember, there are these programs. In fact, Africa was going to meet African leaders. Were invited to a country, to see what these powerful countries, rich countries, to see what they can do together. But alongside that, they had sent teams around, and they still go. They were going before, and they have continued to go. They pick young leaders, you call young people, the youth, young leaders, to go and teach them how to be leaders of the future. And I must, some of the leaders in that country who were carrying out that program, I said, by the way, the African young people you pick and take to your countries to teach them, I don't know what. Do you really work together with the leaders of those countries in Africa so that it's even coordinated? And they said, no, it's like, you don't have to do that. I said, but do you really believe these are your young people and not ours? or you think, and he said, what do you teach them? I said, I don't know, we go and teach them, teach them to be leaders. I don't know. Because you teach them to be which leaders, of which context, of which culture, of which, but I told them, if you are taking them to universities to study, to get knowledge, to do what, that's a very good thing. I want us to do that. But if you want to teach them certain manners and ways of behavior, to turn them into African leaders, I said, I think you need our collaboration. Otherwise, you're really making a mess of it.
My name is Mustafa So from Senegal. Mr. President, the question I have is related to intra-trade. We spent the past 2 days talking about the challenge, what can we do to trade among ourselves. And it is obvious that, in Africa, Africa is the only place where language is the barrier for trade. When you look at, for example, West Africa, it's quite challenging to see Nigerians, go to Cote d'Ivoire or Senegal, to do business because of our language barrier. Language, exactly. In terms of the experience from a Rwandan perspective, which goes from a former French-speaking to an Anglophone-speaking country now, what is the advice that you could give to business leaders and then political leaders from Anglophone and Francophone countries to do in order to really facilitate that the trade and exchange, to make sure that a language is not it shouldn't be a barrier, but it should be an opportunity to do business.
Language shouldn't be a barrier. Language is not and shouldn't be. And I think we need money. Can people access finance to do what they want to do? We need freedom of movement. Can people move freely? It has nothing to do with the language. The language is just an imposed barrier that doesn't make sense. In fact, in our tragic history here, during the time liberating our country, somebody from somewhere came and said, because I grew up in Uganda, where they speak English, and I grew up there as a refugee. So then some Europeans said, no, we can't allow these English-speaking people to take over, our Francophone country. I mean, this guy thinks this country belongs to him. In the end, the war that was going on here, it was as if they were fighting English-speaking invaders. And we were telling these people, even these people you are defending, saying they speak French, actually a very tiny fraction speaks French. These people don't know English, they don't even know French. These are just these innocent people who don't speak any of these languages. So this is how stupid the whole thing is.
We have a gentleman Just further back there with the beard. Where's the microphone, I think? Yes. Please.
Mr. President, this is a banking conference in Rwanda. I'm Olivier Holmy, a French business journalist, writing for Euromoney magazine.
Do we need a translator?
I feel like it's the wrong time for me to ask this question after that, but here goes. This week a piece of banking news concerning Rwanda came out of France. BNP Paribas is alleged to have allowed a transfer of money from the Rwandan central bank to an arms dealer in 1994, thereby contributing to the genocide. Obviously, this is not the first story linking France to the events of the time, and I'd like to hear your thoughts on that.
Although I've got to say, Mr. President, it's up to you. We're discussing African Union reform, so I don't know if you want to address this. I think we should stick on the topic.
Yes. But I would add that...
we can have a discussion outside the room if you want.
Thank you. So, we can squeeze in one last question here at the front there. Thank you. Just get the gentleman with the red tie. Just stand up actually and then they'll see you.
Thank you very much, and very good afternoon to you, Your Excellency. My name is Albert Ankra, and I'm from Ghana. I handle business development for a conglomerate called Just One Group of Companies. So my question has to do with looking forward 50 years from now. I'm looking at succession planning for the African continent, on the African continent. Everything being equal, I'm looking throughout the room here, and I'm, hazarding a guess or putting the average age right here in the room, maybe around 50, 55. So 50 years from now, I'm not sure that about half of us will be here. But getting to the very serious issue. So I'm asking, what is a leader like you, what kind of strategies is being put in place for succession in the time when you are not there for business, for governance? What kind of, and this question also goes for all the leaders here, so that when you are not here, we can be sure that the good work you started will still continue. Thank you.
I think it has more to do with the probably generational succession. If we just talk about individuals and get lost there, I think I'll tell you, well, people may think it is a problem, but I think this is not a major problem for Africa. We are talking about freedom of movement, we are talking about mindset change, we are talking about all kinds of things. These are broad issues. So, but succession process, for me, I want to take it that it should come naturally from the good things being done. And it should also come actually when people want it. So you can, there are many things here, but for me I don't see it as a major problem that has really hindered Africa's development. I don't think so. If it is a problem, it is a small part somewhere. But I think, and we may be having that problem because of failure of doing other things that we need to be doing. It's a result of something else not being done. And I think the kinds of investments we need to make in our people and apply the political will to develop these things, and thinking about our people, what they get, what they participate in, what they contribute to, and really whether they feel they own all this we are talking about. The failure to reach a good level of that produces a problem of succession. I think this is the main thing. So we shouldn't take it as the actual problem. The actual problem is something else that produces it. So it's a broad question, it's a broad answer, but I think the moment we have people who are satisfied that they are getting what they deserve, I think the problem is resolved in the end.
As we wrap up, Mr. President, I wonder, you know, we live in a time where there's obviously so much uncertainty. We have the United States putting up barriers and walls. You're tasked with bringing down barriers on the African continent. How do you remain optimistic that you can see great progress here in Africa as we see so much happening around us where walls are going up? You have European Union and Brexit and Trump and so on.
By the way, those barriers being built, or those problems we are witnessing, have not come as a result of a succession problem. As I think maybe the turnover is so high that if that was the issue, we wouldn't have been having any problems at all in those places. But on the other hand, you know, it's interesting when you see the problems across Western countries. And when you think deeply, they are a result of so many things having gone wrong about what they have been preaching to others and not doing themselves. Yes. That's, I think, it's exactly. So, no one would, I wouldn't be one of those to celebrate other people's problems. But I think these problems, in a way, as they grapple with them and want to find a solution for themselves, very good. But there is always going to be a silver lining around this very dark cloud. It sometimes sends us signals that, you know what, even when we've been asking you to depend on us, actually you should remember that at certain points you are on your own. So you better do your thing and rely on what you can do for yourselves and what you can partner with others to do. Really don't believe so much about what we tell you. I think this is the lesson I get. Yes.
Well, it's interesting as a journalist watching Donald Trump's constant battles with the media, and I understand sometimes some of the journalists are a little bit either crafty or a little crazy with things. It reminds me of a story of one journalist, a CNN journalist who used to go in, who started going into a bar, and he'd go up to the counter, and first time he went in, he said to the barman, "I want 3 pints of beer." The barman said, "Well, do you want me to pour 1 pint? And then when you finish, I'll give you the others." "No, 3 at the same time." It's strange, he's paying for them, it's fine. So he gave him 3 pints of beer, and he saw him sipping from each one until he finished them. Anyway, later in next week he came in, same thing, 3 pints of beer, and the barman said, like 3 at the same time again. He said, "Please." So same thing, he sipped from each one until they were all finished. So each week he kept coming, this barman said, "I'm really curious, why do you drink 3 at a time and not, you know, just have one and then?" He said, "You know, I have 2 brothers. And we promised each other that once a week at least we would drink together. So this is me drinking with my brothers." The barman said, that's very sweet, that's a great sentiment. So it's carried on for a few weeks. But then one week he came in and he said, 2 pints of beer, please. The barman said, "You mean 3? He said, "No, 2 pints of beer." He said, 2 pints of beer? The journalist said, "Yeah, 2 pints of beer." So the barman poured him 2 pints. Then he thought, oh my goodness, something has happened to one of his brothers. So as he was sipping from the 2 beers, he said to the journalist, "I'm really sorry for your loss." And the journalist said, "What loss?" He said, "For your loss, obviously you're sipping from just 2 pints now, so I'm presuming something happened to one of your brothers." He said, no, it's just that I gave up drinking." So, on that note, I'd like to thank President Paul Kagamé for taking the questions today.
Big thanks once again to our guest of honor.